The signs are impossible to miss. Laminated, bolted at eye level. Red lettering on a white background that reads, in plain English, do not hike below the rim between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. during summer months. Not a suggestion, not a liability disclaimer. A warning written in the accumulated weight of hundreds of rescues and a number of deaths that the park would rather not keep counting. It's 9:07 a.m. on a July morning at the Bright Angel trailhead, and the temperature on the south rim is already 91 degrees Fahrenheit. That matters because the rim is a lie. Down there, where the trail switchbacks into shadow and stone, the canyon floor will climb past 120 degrees Fahrenheit before noon. The rock itself radiates heat like a cast iron skillet left on a burner. There's no breeze, there's almost no shade. And the trail that looks like a gentle descent from up here will demand every ounce of that energy back on the way up, when you're already depleted, already hot, already running low on water. Ranger Donnie Ortega has had this conversation before, many times before. She's part of the Preventive Search and Rescue program, the PSAR team, that logged 97,749 visitor contacts. In 2025 alone, intercepting hikers before a bad decision became a medical emergency. She's good at reading people. She can spot the ones who are listening and the ones who've already decided. These 4 women have already decided. They're confident. Vacation mode, sunglasses on, day packs light, laughing at something on someone's phone as Ortega delivers the warning she's required to give. We strongly advise not hiking below the rim between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. The words hang in the hot, dry air. One of them glances at the sign, nods. They're already walking. Ortega watches them disappear around the first switchback. Then she reaches for her radio, not to stop them, but to alert the team below. Only one of those 4 women will make it back on her own. And the question that should haunt every person who's ever felt confident standing at that rim is simple. Why does this keep happening, and what finally changes when the canyon stops forgiving? Stand at the south rim on a July morning and the view is genuinely breathtaking. A mile-deep cathedral of amber and crimson, ancient rock layered like the pages of a book that took 2 billion years to write. The air up here is dry and warm, not brutal. A light wind moves through the junipers. Tourists in shorts eat granola bars and take selfies. It feels like a park. It feels managed, civilized. That feeling is the canyon's oldest trick. The moment you step below the rim, physics takes over, and physics at the Grand Canyon is not neutral. The walls are red Kaibab limestone and bright angel shale, colors that exist precisely because these rocks are exceptional at absorbing solar radiation. By mid-morning, those walls have been drinking in sunlight for hours. They don't just reflect it back, they radiate it outward, at body level, in every direction. Above you, the sun hammers down. Below you, the trail surface holds heat like a brick oven floor. On both sides, the rock walls pulse with stored warmth. Researchers call this a radiant heat trap. Hikers who've survived it call it something less clinical. The inner canyon floor regularly exceeds 105 degrees Fahrenheit in the shade during summer months. Not in direct sun, in the shade. The NPS is specific about this. Hiking between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. is the single most common cause of heat-related illness in the entire park. Not bad luck, not freak weather. A predictable, repeatable window of danger that the canyon enforces every single summer. In 2023, a 55-year-old man attempted to hike rim to rim in a single day. He was fit. He was motivated. Inner canyon temperatures that day exceeded 120 degrees Fahrenheit. He did not make it. The canyon didn't care about his fitness level. It never does. So the canyon is dangerous. Rangers know it. Signs say it. And yet 302 rescues in a single year, which raises the real question: who are the people who keep walking in anyway? The summer of 1996 was when the canyon stopped being a warning and became a crisis. 5 people died from heat-related causes that summer, not over a decade, over a single season. 300 heat-related search and rescue incidents were logged before September. Total rescues reached 482, a number so alarming that it landed on desks in Washington and forced a reckoning that the National Park Service could no longer postpone. The question wasn't whether the canyon was dangerous, everyone knew that. The question was whether the danger could be intercepted. The answer was the Preventive Search and Rescue Program, PSAR. Before 1996, rangers responded to emergencies. After 1996, they began positioning themselves at trailheads on switchbacks at the first water station, specifically to catch bad decisions before they became medical evacuations. The philosophy shifted from rescue to prevention, from reaction to interception. And it worked. Statistically, measurably worked. SAR incidents per 100,000 visitors dropped from 9.4 in the decade before the program launched to 7.6 in the 6 years after, a reduction significant enough to clear the threshold of statistical confidence P equals 0.02. That's not a rounding error, that's lives. But here's what that number also tells you. The problem didn't go away. In 2023, 25 years after PSAR launched, the canyon still ran 302 rescue missions. 4 hikers died. In a single week in late May 2024, park staff flew 13 medevac missions responding to heat illness, dehydration, and hyponatremia. 13 in 1 week. The program reduced the bleeding. It couldn't stop it entirely, because no warning sign, no ranger conversation, no laminated placard has ever successfully reached the one variable the canyon cannot control, human certainty. People don't walk past those signs because they're uninformed. They walk past them because they're convinced. Convinced the warning applies to someone else, someone less prepared, someone less fit. The rangers can stop some of them. They can't stop everyone. And on this particular July morning, they couldn't stop 4. They stepped onto the Bright Angel Trail at 10:12 a.m. The first half mile is deceptive in the best possible way. The trail descends through 2 short tunnels carved directly into the limestone, and the rock overhead provides real shadow, cool, almost pleasant. The temperature drops a few degrees, the path is wide and well-maintained. Below, the canyon spreads out in breathtaking layers of rust and gold. It looks manageable, it looks like a hike. That's the first jaw of the trap closing. By the second mile, the tunnels are behind them and the shade disappears almost completely. The trail switchbacks down exposed ridgelines and the rock walls on either side that have been absorbing July sun since dawn. It's not yet 11 a.m., and the temperature has already crossed 105 degrees Fahrenheit. Not the air temperature, the ambient temperature, the number your body actually feels when heat radiates from the ground below and the walls beside you simultaneously. 2 of the women are slowing. Not dramatically, just the subtle recalibration of people whose bodies are starting to send signals their minds haven't accepted yet. Shorter steps, longer pauses at the trail's edge, looking out rather than down. One of them drains the last of her first water bottle and tucks it back into her pack. They had brought what felt like enough. It almost always feels like enough at the trailhead. By mile 3, the temperature has climbed past 110 degrees Fahrenheit. The canyon floor is still more than a mile below. And here is the moment that the documented pattern of every midday heat incident at this park converges on a single, brutal geometry. The only exit is up. The same steep miles they descended, now climbed in full afternoon sun, against muscles already taxed, against a water supply already reduced, against a heat that will only intensify for the next 3 hours. One woman stops. She looks back up the trail, the way they came, and says what the other 3 have been refusing to think. She says, "We need to stop." 3 of them keep moving. 1 turns around. What happens to a group when it fractures in 110-degree heat and only 1 person is carrying enough water to survive the climb back out? The body's early warning system is elegant, almost gentle. A headache that feels like dehydration. Nausea that could be nerves. Pale, cool, clammy skin, which seems contradictory in 110-degree heat, but isn't. The body is shunting blood away from the surface, trying to protect the core. Sweating so heavily that electrolytes are pouring out faster than plain water can replace them. The NPS identifies these precisely: pale face, nausea, cool skin, cramps, heat exhaustion, treatable if you stop. But here's the canyon's cruelest design feature. The same process that produces those symptoms also begins degrading the mechanism you'd use to recognize them. Confusion sets in gradually, not like a switch flipping, but like a dimmer turning down. Judgment softens before it fails. You feel fine, you feel warm, but fine. The trail ahead looks shorter than it probably is. The water you have left feels like more than it probably is. You're not being stubborn anymore. You're past the point where stubbornness and impairment look different from the outside. Joelle Baird, the lead public affairs specialist at Grand Canyon National Park, has said it plainly: heat emergencies and heat illness are 100% preventable by making good choices. That's true. And it's also, at a certain point on the trail, a statement about a window that has already closed. The warning signs of heat stroke, confusion, altered mentation, fainting don't arrive with a diagnosis attached. They arrive feeling like fatigue, like pushing through, like something you can walk off. Think about someone in your own life who's ever pushed past a warning their body was sending, maybe even you. What made them keep going? The three women below the rim right now can't accurately answer that question, not anymore. The ranger's radio crackles. Someone has called for help. But in the inner canyon in July, help is measured in hours, not minutes. In late May 2024, Grand Canyon Park staff flew 13 medevac missions in a single week. 13. That's not a crisis year. That's 7 days in late spring, before the summer peak even arrived. Nearly 2 helicopter extractions every single day, each one requiring a crew to fly into the same heat that put someone on the ground in the first place. Think about what that actually means. A medevac helicopter in the inner canyon in summer isn't a quick errand. Pilots contend with density altitude, the thin, superheated air that reduces lift and makes the aircraft work harder just to stay airborne. Ground teams descend on foot through the same 110-degree corridors to stabilize patients before the helicopter can reach them. Rangers who spent the morning warning hikers at the trailhead spend the afternoon carrying those same hikers out. The canyon doesn't just take from the people who ignore the signs, it takes from the people who go in after them. For 3 of the women on the Bright Angel Trail that morning, the gap between calling for help and help arriving is exactly the kind of gap the canyon exploits. Reese McMichael and Rowan Fitch know something about that gap. After taking a wrong turn off a canyon trail and running out of water, they spent days in 100-degree heat, surviving on water from puddles and rationed granola bars. They built a signal with rocks large enough to be visible from the air. Fitch had a lifeguard whistle. She blew it until her lungs ached, until the sound of rotor blades finally cut through the canyon silence and the helicopter found them. They made it. But survival at the Grand Canyon almost always involves that same brutal arithmetic, what you do in the gap and whether the gap is short enough to survive. For 3 women below the rim right now, rangers are calculating that gap in real time. Coordinates relayed by radio, helicopter availability checked, ground team dispatched. One woman didn't need any of it. She turned around at mile 3, climbed back out alone, and sat down at the rim with her water bottle and something to say about the moment she made that choice. She didn't feel heroic turning around. She felt embarrassed. That's the detail that gets lost in the survival story, the social cost of being the one who stops. Her friends were still moving when she reversed direction, still talking, still convincing themselves the worst of it was behind them. And she climbed back out alone, in the full weight of July, with nothing but her own doubt and the trail's brutal math to keep her company. She reached the rim shaking, not from cold, from the particular exhaustion of a body that has been fighting heat for 2 hours and finally stopped having to. A ranger met her at the trailhead. She was pale, nauseated, drinking water in the slow, careful sips of someone who'd learned the hard way that gulping doesn't help. Then she asked about her friends. The ranger's expression answered before any words did. That pause, the fraction of a second before a trained professional chooses what to say, told her everything. 3 women had gone down that trail with her. 3 women had kept moving when she turned back. Amber Van Hecke, stranded near the Grand Canyon after a navigation error, later described the moment she accepted she was in real danger as the moment her thinking finally cleared, not before, after she admitted it. The fear, she said, was the most honest thing she felt out there, and following it was what saved her. The woman at the trailhead had done the same thing. She had felt scared and recognized scared as correct. She had been willing to be wrong in front of people who were still certain, and that willingness, that single moment of choosing embarrassment over confidence, was the entire margin between her story and theirs. If this kind of story, the gap between a warning and a choice, stays with you, subscribe to Doomed Departures. Not to support the channel, but to be part of a community that pays attention to the decisions most people never examine until it's too late. And here's what I want to ask you directly. Have you ever been in a group where you felt the pull to keep going even when something felt wrong and either turned back or didn't? Tell me in the comments. Because what happens next in this story isn't just about the canyon. So what do we do with this? Because here's the part that changes everything. She almost didn't turn back either. She had walked the first 2 miles with the same certainty as the others. She had felt the heat and told herself it was manageable. She had watched her water level drop and done the same quiet recalculation everyone does. I'll drink less on the way back. I'll be faster going up. It's not as bad as the signs say. The signs. That's the thing worth sitting with. The Grand Canyon isn't posting warnings because it thinks visitors are reckless. It's posting them because it has been collecting confident people since before the parking lot existed. In February 1939, Casimir Poltorak, an experienced hiker, attempted a rim-to-river descent on the Bright Angel Trail in poor winter conditions. He was found dead in a snowdrift, not a novice, not someone who had wandered in unprepared, someone who looked at the conditions and decided they applied to other people. That was 86 years ago. The canyon has been making the same argument ever since. Psychologists call it optimism bias, the documented, measurable tendency of human beings to believe that negative outcomes are statistically more likely to happen to others than to themselves. It's not arrogance. It's not stupidity. It's the brain's default factory setting, installed in virtually everyone, operating below the level of conscious choice. Studies consistently show that people rate themselves as less likely than average to experience car accidents, illness, financial ruin, and dangerous hikes. The Grand Canyon is specifically, almost architecturally, designed to exploit it. The first mile is genuinely manageable. The temperature genuinely feels survivable at the trailhead. The trail genuinely looks shorter from the top than it is. Every sensory signal in that first descent confirms the bias rather than correcting it. The NPS has said it plainly, do not rely on experience alone. Not because experience doesn't matter, but because the canyon's environment is extreme enough that the environment usually wins. Fit, acclimatized, experienced hikers have been overwhelmed. The variables that feel like protection, fitness, preparation, confidence reduce risk without eliminating it. And that brings us back to the ranger at the trailhead and the question she asks every single person who walks past her toward that trail. Do you have enough water to make it back up? Not down, up. The direction most people aren't thinking about yet. It's a simple question, 8 words, but it does something a warning sign can't. It forces the hiker to run the math in real time, out loud in front of another human being. It requires them to imagine the return before they've even begun the descent. In that small moment of projection, some people hear themselves answer and recognize the problem before the canyon has a chance to demonstrate it. That's what 18,400 preventive actions looks like in practice. Not 18,400 arguments, not confrontations. Just 18,400 moments in 2025 where a ranger stood at the edge of a bad decision and asked a question that functioned like a mirror. Some people looked in it, some didn't. The woman who turned back at mile 3 has returned to the Grand Canyon since that July morning, not to hike. She drives to the South Rim, parks in the same lot, walks to the same trailhead, and stands there. She watches people read the signs, or not read them, and then watches them descend anyway. She says she understands it completely. The confidence, the casual assessment, the quiet certainty that the warnings are calibrated for someone less capable. She was those people. She was those people until mile 3, when something shifted, not knowledge, but honesty. The willingness to let the math be the math instead of the math she preferred. She attended 3 funerals. She has not hiked below the rim since. The canyon didn't change between her first step down and her last step back up. It was the same heat, the same rock, the same indifferent geometry it has maintained for 2 billion years. What changed was her. One moment of accurate self-assessment against the grain of every social pressure to keep moving. That's what the canyon is actually asking. Not whether you're fit enough or experienced enough or carrying enough water, though those things matter. It's asking whether you're honest enough, whether you can hear a number, run the calculation, and act on what the math says rather than what you hoped it would say. The signs are not liability disclaimers. They are the canyon's best attempt at a conversation with a species wired to believe it is the exception. Most people walk past them. The ranger asks her question anyway.